You what? Hear that, boys? I reckon they're gonna beat us. Get me my armour. We're going crumping.
Welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this one we're going to get a bit of fun going. Painting this massive orc warboss from CRAZYDWARFMINIATURES on Etsy. I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you very much, guys. This is a great 3D print and worth every penny in my view. It was a multi-part kit, really easy to put together, just with super glue, and there he is in all his glory. Absolutely amazing. This is what a warboss should be. Right, on to the painting. So this thing is an absolute beast. Comes with a really cool base with a load of bits to add on for texture and scenery and things. Multi-part kit, simple to put together, and yeah, just for me this is what an orc warboss should be. Also 2 power claws in mega armor. Why is that not a thing anymore? But I digress. So to start with, the entire miniatures had a muddy brown all over. I've base coated all of the metallics in gunmetal, and then given the entire miniature a heavy sepia wash, and this is to act as the undercoat ready for the first layer that we're going to see now. So I'm starting off with Bold Pearl Red by ProAcryl and just stippling it onto all the panels. This is heavily watered down, so it'll give a really muddy and stained sort of texture and finish, and then we're going to build up the layers afterwards. So for this, just an old brush, it's got rune bristles, and you can see I'm just stippling it on, concentrating more in the centre of each panel and not going right up to the edge all over, and it's just a case now of building up each of the layers in turn, and eventually you're going to get a really nice texture and just something that looks a bit more battle worn. Red, it's a good colour, and also, as we know, orc lovers, makes things go faster. You can see here that red's actually toned down considerably as it's been a watered down layer, and with the black on the background, and it's almost like a muddy brown. And then this is why we'll just keep adding layers now, and this will build up and build up. So exactly the same paint again, second layer, and again just stippling it on, so you're still going to have bits of that sort of greyish black show through on the panels, and then the previous red layer as well. And like the other paintings we've done on the channel, just a case of just building up layers and texture, and you get this really nice deep coloured effect that really makes the model pop. Right, so with this third layer, again the exact same colour, this time just not watered down as much, and being a bit more selective in the areas that I pop the colour on. So more of the raised areas that are being light, and just again concentrating on the very centre of each panel and just some of the edges. And this is just going to give a really nice gradient and make the metal look really worn and battered and look like, you know, it's seen a lot of damage, because orcs, their stuff isn't perhaps aesthetically pleasing, but it's still well made, and you know they're butchering things from other vehicles, buildings and structures to make their armour and their weapons and whatnot. And then the idea of that is that follows through into the actual painting, and I wanted this to look like it's been basically painted red by the grots or whoever for the warboss. And again, so it's the same principle. This time I'm just using neat paint as opposed to being watered down, and you can see I've changed the brush. I've got a really thin stipple brush here, and I'm only hitting the most raised areas. And again, the stippling motion gets it to put it on patchy, and you'll see the layers come through as it dries. So it's a really nice finish, and it's a cool way of painting your miniatures to make them a little more battle damaged, because I want this warboss to look like, you know, he's seen some action. Now on a couple of the panels I've put some checker patterning. So these are the panels that I've just left the initial grey. So what I've done is just marked out with a pencil where I want them, just because it's easier than trying to do it by brush. and then I'm going to go in there and block out the black checkers with coal black by ProAcryl, and then the white checkers with ivory, and just build them up. Because Goth Clan Orks, they have the checker pattern, and it just looks cool, and it's a nice addition just to break up all that red that we see across the armour, and just again gives a bit more visual interest to the actual miniature. And like with anything that I do on this channel, you know, if you guys want to try this thing out, just have fun with it, practice things, chuck stuff on different colours, you know, because it may not work, but at least you've tried something new and tried something a bit different. One thing I will say about this paint as well, because by now my paint review's already been up, this coal black in particular is really good for doing soot on engines. If you dry brush it on, because of the way it dries, it's a very, very matte paint. So yeah, definitely some cool applications I can think of to use for this paint in the future. And exactly the same again, except this time with the bright ivory, and just building up the white checkers. Now, with this, because the way that these paints actually go down, it doesn't matter if I go over with the dark colour, because the bright colours in this set are really, really good. And I can just go back and neaten them with it if I need, and just go back and forth till you get the checker pattern that you like, you know, the right size and things. When it dries, I just go in with the centre dot in the middle of each of the squares, just to brighten it up a little bit more, and then it all gets a wash of very watered down sepia after that, just to make it look a bit dirty and a bit grungy. And you can see there the armour sort of texture and the layers are coming through. It just looks really battered and war beaten, just, yeah, so like it's been used a lot. So now what I'm doing, I'm going in with plate mail silver from Vallejo, and just picking out some of these little scratches and dinks that have been printed within the model, and some of the edges of the metal to look like it's been, you know, cut from a bulkhead or whatnot and repurposed as armour. And all the little teeth will get a silver base coat before we go in and weather them a bit more as well. And this just makes some of the finer details pop and give it a bit more sharpness to the model. Right, so this is a bit of a channel first. I've never used this product before, and I thought I'd give it a go on this miniature, as it's a test piece for something I'm doing later on as a competition piece. And it's the Dirtydown rust paint. So this is a water soluble paint that when it dries it goes really thick and looks like rust marks that you get on metal and things. A few things about the actual product itself. Water soluble is really good, so you can soften the edges after it's dried and make it look a bit more natural. It is extremely smelly as well, for the chemicals and whatever it is that's in it. And I'd also recommend you use an old brush, because it's quite a sticky, it's almost syrupy type substance, and it does, although you can, you know, I've washed this brush out completely, it does still feel different when I've used it on other things. So I would recommend using an older brush, but it goes on really nice. And on top of the silver, when it dries, you do get those crusty, rusty flake bits. And if you know, once it's dry, if you add more of it on an application on the same area, you get a much stronger effect. And then just with a wet brush, you can feather the edges and make it look a bit more natural as a transition into the metal. But yeah, first time I've used it and really enjoyed it. It's I can definitely think of a lot of applications I'm going to use this for. And you can see there he's looking really grungy and dirty, and a bit more sort of that towards that grimdark aesthetic, as opposed to, you know, the really neat and well painted sort of edge highlighting type stuff. Now at this point, I decided, because it's got a cyborg head, on the actual sculpt it's as if there's a flapper skin that's been bolted onto the front of the head and stretched over the metal of the actual cyborg hull. So in the video you'll see I actually paint it up with greens and layer it up and things. Looking at the finished product after I'd done all the videos and I came to editing this video, I decided I'm going to change it into the grey skin colour of my ork commando that I put up on the community post a few weeks back as a little side project I was working on for a commission piece. I just think it pops more. The green sort of blob, when you look at the silhouette of the miniature, I think it stands out a bit too much. It's a bit too green and it needs to be muted down a little bit more. So I'm going to try it with the actual grey skin tone that I did for my other orks and just see how that goes. But using the same principle, so working on a base layer, adding a highlight colour, mixing it in, and then 2-to-1 mix, 3-to-1 mix, and so on, until you get those layers of gradient and transition through the skin. The head, when you buy the miniature as well, you can pick a different head. There's a pirate captain and like a normal ork flesh head as well. I went for the sideboard because I want full on metal. But yeah, it's just something to note. So although you see it in the finished photos and things, I am going to change it because I just feel it stands out a bit too much. Now, a really simple step, basically everything metallic, so all those silver teeth around the miniature, a little bit on top of the engines, even on top of the rust that I put down. I just give it a really heavy non-oil coat just to darken it down because they were looking a bit too bright, and then that makes the scratches and the other little edge parts of the panels that I've put the silver on just pop a little bit more and tones the others down. Right, so for this next step, I'm just going to be dry brushing a load of sort of chainmail all over the metallic parts. Now, a bit of a top tip here, go out and get yourself some makeup brushes. I bought a 12-piece set of, they're called Edge Shadow brush set from Home Bargains here in the UK, and various sizes. These make really, really good dry brushes because they're really soft. Use them in the exact same way. They actually they don't leave that sort of powdery effect that you can sometimes get with dry brushing. Now, I've bought other dry brushes in the past, some professional ones and all this sort of stuff. I keep going back to makeup dry brushes. For me and how I paint, it suits, and it's something that I'm always going to go back and reuse and not bother buying all the super expensive ones. Yes, they don't last very long. Once you've used the colour, if there's a particular size brush you like, you've got to wait for it to dry, which is a pain in the backside, but they are really good brushes to use for this technique, and strongly recommend you getting them. As I say, I paid, I think it was £2 for a pack of 12, which is, it's peanuts compared to what the cost of other brushes can be in this hobby. It's just to add a bit more grime and a bit more sort of wear and tear on it. A few select spots of really heavy sepia wash, just in a few areas, mainly over the engine and in between a couple of the bigger armour plates, and it goes on top of the red and just gives it a really mucky texture. That sort of coffee staining that you might hear other channels talk about when you put washes on too thick, I'm actually wanting that here because it adds a really good effect. And then some of the bigger panels, just giving it a very light brush, and it just tones down the colour a bit more because I felt it was looking a bit too bright and a bit too clean. Right, so this is a bit of an experiment. So along with the Dirtydown rust, I got the Dirtydown moss effects. Again, very strong smell, so make sure you've got a ventilated room or put a mask on. But I wanted to put this across the entire base. Now, it didn't dry exactly how I thought it was going to. Now, it could be I've not applied it properly, or it needs a second layer, or maybe a bit more water feathering to sort of activate it a bit more. But all of the base gets this green hue, apart from the big slabs of stone that have got the old imperial colour and the bits of sort of metal and rebar that are popping out. Because I wanted it to be like an overgrown city ruin that this ork's on. Plus the green is a really nice contrast to the red as well. After this is slapped on, it's left to dry. As you can see here, just put a little bit on the feet so it looks like he has been marching through. And that's where I will say this product does, it does work and look really nice. It's a nice staining technique. It just doesn't look very mossy, only in certain areas. But again, this could be the way I've applied it, or maybe it needs another coat or something, just to help it react a bit more. But I'm going to do some more tests with this over the next couple of weeks and just see if I can figure it out and master it, because the rust one is a lot easier to do, I will say. You pretty much just pop it on and leave it, and then if you want you can just feather out the edges with a bit of water on a brush. But yeah, so this goes all over. I've got some different shades of green clump foliage, which is effectively just coloured sponge. So I pop them on over bits of the base, so it just looks like this overgrown sort of city rubble. And then the Aquila gets a nice sort of goldish colour, and then tarnished down with a sepia and a Nuln Oil wash, just to make it look a bit grungy and a bit dirty. But yeah, it's not too bad. As I say, my only really thing I'm not a fan of is the skin part of his head. I think I'll definitely go back and do the grey, sort of black grey like I did with my Commando Ork, and another few highlights on the claws with some brighter silver, I think, as well. The armour has come out beautifully. I really like this technique of just stippling on, because you get really good texture and sort of battle damage, and yeah, it just looks the part, and it works, especially with an orc, or something that's a bit more grungier and doesn't necessarily, if you think about it in game terms, doesn't really care about what it looks like and things. It's just a case of the armour or the item serves a function, and that's it, and a purpose. But yeah, looks really good. I'm quite happy with it. I'll change the skin and I'll put a photo up on the community tab when I get round to it, because I'm working on a couple of the projects at the moment. And here are the finished results. Right, so as I mentioned in the video, I will be changing that chunk of flesh on his cyborg head. I just feel like it stands out too much. The armour I'm really happy with, really cool gradients. It looks battle worn and damaged. I want to go in. I think I'm going to go in with a few extra silver highlights on some of the bits of metal, especially on the claws. Let's make his bottom jaw a bit more pronounced, and some of the sort of the edges of the metal panels. But yeah, overall really happy with this. I've tried a few different techniques, tried some things I've not done before, even a few new products, just as a cool test piece to see how it looks. And also, it's just good to get a miniature done. I mean, yes, there's a few touch-ups, but he's been sitting there, and I've not been able to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with it. But yeah, enjoyable all the less. Remember, guys, try something new, have a bit of fun with it. Don't get disheartened if you get it wrong. As I've said here, I'm going to change a couple of things on this miniature because I'm not 100% happy. But it's okay, it'll do for what I want it for at the moment, and that's just getting some more practice in different techniques, ready for a bigger project that's coming. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.